Hey, I'm Olivia. I'm the Southern Yankee Stitcher. Welcome to my Flosstube number 8. It's fall, y'all. Well, it may not be fall quite yet. I think tomorrow is the actual first day of fall, the 21st, but it feels like fall at my house. I decorated for fall this weekend, which is kind of late for me. Last year, being home during the pandemic, September 1st rolled around and I was putting up pumpkins. I was ready. I was ready for fall. I'm ready for fall now here too. Um, but I just had to get in the decorating mood. I just wasn't in it for a while till this past weekend. Normally I use a lot of foliage and leaves in my fall decor, and I looked at that tub and I said, I'm not even going to get those out. I may go back and add some later. I feel like my mantel's a little bit bare back here behind me, but I often tweak things, and it takes me a while to get them just where I want them. About the time it's time to take them down is where I have them where I like them. But I just thought I would share some prior finishes with you. Well, I have one prior finish, and that's this one here. And this is called, let's see, Tradition from Ancestors. It's by Twin Peaks Primitives, and it was in the 2019 fall issue of Punch Needle Primitive Stitcher. And I don't know what fabric this is on. I think it looks like a 28 count. I think it's just a 28 count even weave I got at Hobby Lobby. I stitched this well, I had it up last year, so I stitched it over a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago. And it was probably in 2019 when the issue came out. I stitched it shortly thereafter. And I really liked the pilgrims on this, and I liked the bounty down here, all the food. I did change some colors, mainly in this section right here. When I was stitching this, I wasn't crazy about the color they used for the acorns. But I tried, I don't know how many different browns when I was stitching this to try and find something I liked a little bit better, and I couldn't find anything that looked like I wanted it to, and I stuck with the original, and I think it looks pretty good. The sheep didn't show up real well on this, and I went back and I back stitched around a white sheep, but I think I mentioned this last week. I didn't like the way the back stitching looked. Instead of them looking, round and fluffy, it looked kind of jagged when you brought attention to those stitches. I did copy and tea stain this fabric, and I did that before I stitched it. This might have been one of the first pieces I did, and I like the modeling on there pretty well. Sorry, y'all. It's 5 o'clock. I just came home from work. It's Monday, and I thought I need to get this recorded because I didn't get it done this weekend. And so I didn't fix my hair or anything. I am how I am at the end of the day. But some of the colors that they had charted for the food here, some of them were kind of neon. The oranges were just too bright for me. I remember I bought what they called for, but I didn't like them. But I can't tell you what they are because I went back through my stash of floss, and I had a lot of floss that came from kits. Before I started stitching again in 2019, which is about the time I started this, I only bought kits. I think maybe there's one thing I stitched that didn't come from a kit, but most of them came from kits. So, and they didn't always tell you what the threads were, if they were DMC or whatever. And I would get the kit and I would separate my floss. And I didn't have near the ideas that you have for floss storage now. I use bags now and I use floss drops. I didn't have any of that. This is how I organize my floss, y'all. Look, here's a cereal box, Cheerios box. And I just cut slits and wound it around, and that's how I kept track of my floss. And I'm not sure I even labeled what they were. I think, unless I kind of put them, as you can see, kind of in color order. So it was probably according to how they were listed on the chart is how I put them on this. But that's how I kept my floss. So this is leftover floss from I don't know what chart. And I have 3 or 4 others just like this that are on just cardboard. And that's where I chose these colors. So there's no way I could tell you what the colors are. I have no clue. But I really like this piece. And I knew I wanted to put it on a pumpkin. And I went with one of my daughters. We went looking for Halloween decorations. She's the daughter that loves Halloween. And we went to At Home. It used to be called Garden Ridge. And I saw this pumpkin, and it was, I don't have a price tag on it anymore, but I'm thinking it was like $27, $28 because it's pretty big. It's pretty big. And I looked at it, and I was like, I'm kind of cheap. I didn't want to spend that money. So I looked, it's one of the first things I saw when I went in the store. And so I'll just think about it. So I thought about it before I left. I didn't see anything else I was buying that day, so I said, I'm getting that pumpkin. And I'm so glad I did. I had planned to mount this on a board like I did, and then have fabric behind it on another board. You know how you stack a flat finish. You've seen that done. And I had this, this is plaid fabric. I just cut in strips. I had that in mind for this, but I don't know. I'm not real fussy with my finishes. I don't like a lot of stuff on them. And I lean a little bit more primitive, but not totally prim. So I put it on the board, and I looked at the fabric, and I was about to, do the other board, and I was like, I just don't think I want it. So I just put a Velcro command strip on this, and that's how it hangs on here, just one strip, because this will go out in my shed when it falls over, and I have to store it. But my stitching stays in the house. I don't send any of my stitching out in the shed. It's not climate controlled out there, and but this is the second year, and the Velcro command strip was still on this when I got it out, and that's been through a lot of humidity down here in South Carolina. But that sits here in front of my. I have toolboxes here in front of my fireplace. Maybe I can tilt this and show you a little bit. Let's see. These toolboxes I got. They are vintage. They're old. Has a tray in here. The top one's empty. The bottom one stores my magazines. I have a lot of country living magazines. It used to be my favorite magazine, and I don't want to throw them away because it has some good ideas. And they always have a cross stitch chart in each magazine too. But the magazine's not as good as it used to be. But I used to go to the Country Living Fair in Atlanta, and anyway, so that holds my magazines down there. But these came from, well, there was let me just sit down and tell you. There was a lady who was a member of our church, and she had been a shut-in from the time we started going to church there. I never knew her. I don't think I ever met her because she was always a shut-in. But sorry, I hope I didn't make y'all sick doing that. She passed away, and they had an auction at her home. And my mother and I went to the auction. This was several years back, and there were a few things I saw at the auction that I wanted, but they sold everything except the things I wanted, and they were getting ready to close down the auction. And these tool boxes were still sitting there, and some old galvanized watering cans and buckets, and I like to use those outside. And there was also a box that had a lot of linens that had hand embroidery on them. And so I kind of spied those too. And I wasn't sure I really wanted to get those, but So they, like I said, they're getting ready to stop the auction, and I said, well, I'm interested in these things, because they said, if you're interested in anything we haven't sold, let us know. So they sold those few things, and these toolboxes were one of them, and those buckets and the box of linens. I ended up getting them all very cheap. I can't remember what I paid, but it was cheap, real cheap. Like I didn't pay more than $20, I think, for each of those boxes. And the stitching, it was just so many like pillowcases that were hand embroidered, and I knew this lady had done it, and I just couldn't. They were probably going to go in the trash, and I just couldn't see that happen. So I paid just a couple dollars for the box of linens. But these boxes, they look like, you saw the one had a number 4 on it, and it looks like, I stenciled and put a number 4 on there. No, I didn't. That's how it came. The town I live in really used to be a cotton mill town. Everybody here pretty much worked for the cotton mill or has some connection to it in some way. It was the only industry that was here for many, many years. And the mills have since shut down, but when they were operating, they all had different names, but they also had numbers. And the gentleman who lived in this house he did some kind of maintenance or something at the cotton mills, and so these were his toolboxes that were used in the mill. So he worked in mill number 4. And I haven't changed paint or anything on them. These have sat on my screen porch. They were on my front porch for a while, and they've been a couple places in my living room. I keep them now in front of the fireplace. We never use our fireplace. We're in the South. We're in South Carolina. We don't have need for a fireplace. It really doesn't get that cold. If we lose power, we might turn it on. It's not gas. If we lose power, we may light a fire. And then my husband has to go out and buy some firewood. We don't keep firewood here. I mean, we have some. We normally just have a brush pile we make and burn, at a certain point. But we don't keep firewood here because we just don't burn it. But anyway, that's those toolboxes there, and I sit this for the fall right in front of the toolboxes. It's kind of how I'll show you back down there again. That's just kind of how, my table's in the way, but that's kind of how it looks. You can kind of see. Some of my other fall decor up here, I have, let me show you a couple of these things. I'm going to get the cross stitch, but I think I'm going to do that last. Sorry, I bumped the table. This is one of those styrofoam pumpkins from Dollar Tree. They're bright orange, like a neon orange, with a green stem, almost a square looking stem. And I did this, oh gosh, at least 5 years ago. I just did off-white chalk paint. And I don't know if y'all can see that. It's kind of hard to see. And then I had some wax I just put on there, but you could just use brown paint. Put a little on a paper towel and just dab it a little bit. I broke the stem off that came with it, and it left a hole when I did that. And I just stuck a stick in there to make a pumpkin. And I think they look cute. I like them. They don't look like they're styrofoam they're sitting up here. They look more like, I don't know, a pumpkin. But with the same pumpkins, I did something else last year. This is the same neon orange styrofoam pumpkin from Dollar Tree. And I bought a bunch of them when I was teaching preschool at church. And we had the kids put their handprint on the pumpkin, just leave it orange and do a white handprint and then put the year or something on there. And it was really cute, something for them to take home, give to mom and dad. But this one, I just covered fabric. And this was actually an old shirt. I cut up an old shirt. I did 4 of these in this blue and white gingham check. And it goes well in my kitchen because I have blue willow dishes on display in my hutch. And that's our everyday dishes too, is blue willow. So I just did that. This stem's a little bit long on this one, but I just put them in a basket or in a bowl, and they look kind of cute. I like those. This next thing is a garland. It's a button garland. I hope you can see that. I can't take any credit for this. this idea. I saw this on a YouTube channel, and the lady who did them, she made a black and white one for Halloween. Used all black and white buttons, and I was like, ooh, I loved it. It was just different. And I decided I wanted to do one with fall buttons. Well, I think she's changed her YouTube name. Her channel used to be called, I think it was Miss Stone Home or Miss Stone House or something like that. And now I believe it's Tarnished Treasures. And I haven't watched any of her stuff in quite a while. It's just, I've gotten so into Flosstube, I just don't watch those anymore. But she collects and likes to decorate with vintage holiday items, like 40s, 50s, 60s vintage Christmas and Halloween. And I think she must be an art teacher. She also takes a lot of those pieces and she makes these things she calls her art. And they're kind of like a shadow box or a diorama, or I don't know what you would call it. But she'll use, ephemera to line the box. Say it's a wooden box. She'll paint it and line the whole thing so you don't even see the box anymore. And then she'll put all kinds of little things that are related in some way in there. And they're really cool. Anyway, she made one of these. So I decided I wanted to do it too with the fall colored buttons. And it's on wire. I have copper wire. I don't know what gauge it is. I mean, it's got to be stiff enough that it won't break when you bend it, because you have to work it through your buttons. But if you use string, then all your buttons are going to slide together in the middle. You want to use wire so you can space them out. And it was so easy. You just string them on there. And I have gosh, you can stop shaking so you can see what I did. It's not very formal, techy, or whatever. There's nothing to it. You just twist it around. I have so many jars of buttons, and I love old buttons, but I didn't have enough of the right colors. I had a lot of brown ones, but when it came to yellow or orange or like the burgundy color in here, I just didn't have enough of the colors. But luckily, one of our thrift stores here in town, I can't think of the name of it right now. It's run by a church for missions or something. They're real small, and I've mentioned them before. I've gotten some of my cross-stitch patterns there. But they must have gotten it from a store that was closing. We had a Hancock Fabrics here, and they closed up. And when they closed up, I think they gave a lot of their things to this thrift store, because they have one of those big, like this cabinets that a fabric store would have in their store, that have like the doors that open and all the little drawers with the buttons in it. And like on the front, it has the actual button on it, so you know where, row 1, 3 over, and then you open the door and get a row 1 and 3 over in the tray. Well, they used to have 2 of those cabinets in their store, and now they're down to 1, and they have a lot of buttons in it, and I think they were 10 cents each. So I went in there and I got a bunch of fall colored buttons for, not hardly any money, and strung these, and I just think they look cute on here. They're not too overpowering, which is what I like. I like things a little bit simple. Last year I did a lot of garland and or a lot of greenery up there. It was too much. It really wasn't me. It was pretty. I saw a lot of it on YouTube, but it just wasn't really me. So, but Tarnished Treasures, and I'm guessing if you go and look for some of her Halloween videos, that she'll probably still be showing those that she did years ago. But it's simple to do those. All right, so for my whips this week, I only worked on 2 charts. You know, I always want to do more stitching than I end up doing. But I worked on George Decorates for Martha. And I got George done and the pumpkin he's standing on and all the pumpkins that he's holding. A few other little motifs around there. I was worried about some of these colors showing up. And George's hair, I did the called for just to see how it looks. I think it's okay. His pants, it was actually charted for a very light gray, and I went up a shade, a little bit darker. And then this one here, the white that didn't show up, I just backstitched around it in a gray. I'm going to wait till I get it all done and see how it looks. But I think that might be okay. I might be able to leave it. But that was George Decorates for Martha. This is on 32 count Vintage Sahara. And it's all the called for weeks and DMC. Then I had the other piece. It was the pumpkin. Do you remember the pumpkin I showed you? So I wanted to put a blackbird on it and kind of make up my own. Dropping things. Excuse me. Well, I did. And this is the pumpkin and the bird. This pumpkin came from this chart here. It's called Pumpkin, Bird, and Tulip by Teresa Miller of Teresa's Primitive Treasures. And this was also in the 2019 fall issue of Punch Needle Primitive Stitcher. And if you recall, I was going to just make that bird black, but I thought he doesn't look like a crow. Even if I make him black, he's not going to look like a crow. So I pulled out another chart to do a crow. And it was this, My Pretties by Plum Street Samplers. And I pulled this one right here, this crow. And that's what I pulled the stitch right on top there. Now I talked about how I wanted to, I didn't use call for colors on any of this. The pumpkin itself was Gentle Arts Burnt Orange 0550. And I love the modeling in that. You can see that there. And then I'm calling them the seams on the pumpkin. I think I mentioned last time I wanted to try and blend threads because I didn't want it to be real green, but I didn't want it to be real orange either. I want it to show up. So I blended DMC 3011 with DMC 922. I used those two, one strand of each. And they were like the seams on the pumpkin. Then the green for the stem was just solid. 3011 is what I used on that one. And the bird is 310. I used Daisy K Primitives, Chrissy's method for coffee and tea staining. I stained it after I stitched it. I kind of used her method because I went to look for tea and I had no tea. I used to have a bunch of tea here that really was purchased by my oldest daughter, and she moved out a while ago. And I forgot that I mentioned to her, oh, you still have this neat wooden box in here full of tea. And she said, oh, I forgot about that. So she took it to her apartment. So when I went to get tea, it's not something I drink very often. There were no tea bags of any kind. So I got some coffee and just made like a cup of coffee. I used my Keurig, but I didn't use a Keurig cup. I have like the little mesh cups that fit, that you can put regular coffee in and put it in your Keurig machine. That's what I used. And just made like a cup of coffee, and then I just painted it on and put it in my oven set at 225. I did it for 20 minutes the first time. I did it a total of 3 times because I just wanted it to be darker and darker. And I ended up the second time and the third time, I should say, I just put it in for 15 minutes. And this is how, let's see, give you something to compare it to. This is what the fabric looked like before and what it looks like after the coffee stain. It's not, it doesn't have as much halo effect as I remember her piece of stain unless you look at the back. The back, you can really kind of see that halo effect. So maybe next time I'll turn it upside down when I do it. I don't know. But I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this. I thought about, excuse me. I'm sorry, can you tell I ran in the house real quick and tried to get this together because I don't have half the stuff I need. I thought about putting this, I mentioned that I saw Amy Loves Toads stitch a piece, put magnets directly on the fabric, and wrap it around like a metal bucket or planter or something. I have this old sifter that I bought just for decor, and I thought about putting it on there. It wouldn't look quite like that. Just kind of making a band that I could change out. Well, you've got the winder here and another part that sticks out here. It's not going to work on there. And I'm not sure I like it as much as I thought I would. And I still have that giant dough bowl I need to fill with things, and I have nothing in it for fall. So I'm going to make this into a small pillow or pin keep, whatever you'd like to call it, and fill it with sawdust. And I hope to have that finished for you next week to show you a fully finished item. I think I have talked about just about everything I had here to show you. As far as Flosstube this week, oh, I watched Sarah Stitches. Sarah commented on one of my videos and said we have a lot of things in common, that just from watching a few videos. So I watched hers and I watched them all, and we do have a lot in common. And I feel like I found a new friend in Sarah because we have even more in common than either one of us thought of until I watched all of her videos and found out more and more about her. So I'm real glad that I was able to find her, and I've still been going back and trying to catch up with 911 Stitcher. Stacy, she has a lot of good information on there. Like, she does a lot of research before she talks to you about things, and I mean, her stash is incredible. Her chart stash is incredible. So I've been watching some of her older ones and trying to catch up on those, and then of course all my regulars and seeing all the footage from the what was that retreat everybody went to, the quilt or something, when where Liz Matthews was at and taught a class, and a couple other people taught. Anyway, I've enjoyed watching people show their haul from that retreat. And Lisa with the Kindred Stitcher, she showed some videos and some pictures of the quilt store there and all their fabrics. It was incredible. I've never seen that much in one place before. Never have seen that. It was really neat. I could see where you could drop a lot of money there, especially if you quilt. I don't quilt, but a lot of those fabrics I would get just for finishing, for sure. But go check her out. She likes to do a lot of holiday themed pieces, and they're interesting to see. She's working on a couple of Prairie Schooler like Christmas ones that I really liked. And I guess that's about it. Now I cannot figure out for the life of me why. I had my daughter. I said, people are saying they can't comment on my video. Will you go and see if you can? And she could, no problem. And then I think Sarah from Sarah Stitches commented. I think it was the most recent one. She commented on it and didn't have any trouble. I don't know. I don't know why. But if you all like this video, hit like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Just tell me what your favorite and I want to try and make sure that that comment thing is working right. I'm not doing something wrong when I post these. And because I'm, next month is my birthday month, and I never really called it a birthday month, but my birthday is in October, and I'm going to do some giveaways in October for sure. And I'll see you all later. Bye.